Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday, and welcome to my QuickBooks tutorial. Today is going to be specific to the trucking industry, and I wanted to talk about factoring and fuel cards. So it's a little bit different from your typical bookkeeping because we're not working with a checking account necessarily or a credit card, but instead we are working with a factoring company and fuel cards. So I am a bookkeeper and I own Harrisburg Bookkeeping, and I also own Route 20 Trucking Company. So I've got a lot of experience with bookkeeping, and I got a little bit of experience with trucking. So I'm going to explain what I have seen with my trucking company and incorporate my knowledge of bookkeeping and QuickBooks, and hopefully you all find this helpful. So without further ado, we'll just jump right into it. So let me move my face down here. This is my actual QuickBooks company. Sorry, QuickBooks account. My actual QuickBooks account. So, Route 20 Trucking Company. Okay, so factoring and fuel cards. So it's pretty easy. I'm not going to go over typical bookkeeping with checking account and credit cards. If you receive money into your checking account, it's pretty straightforward how to account for that because chances are you probably have your bank feed set up. So in your banking, you might already have your bank feed. Like here, I have my checking account and I've got my 2 credit cards set up. But I don't have my fuel card set up. I don't have my factoring company set up here. So here's what I do. I do journal entries, and it can get kind of confusing. So this isn't really a basic QuickBooks tutorial. This is more specific with just the factoring and the fuel card. So I'm not going to show you like how to get to a journal entry. I'm not going to show you like the specifics and the details of your chart of accounts. This is really just kind of a broad overview of how to account for getting paid from a factoring company. So a couple things happen. You are obviously earning revenue and you're paying your factoring company at the same time, all the while they're depositing money into your checking account. So let's say I do a trip, get paid $1,000 from the broker or the shipper, or whoever's paying you, $1,000. You're not going to get $1,000 into your checking account, but you still want to record $1,000 of revenue. So there's a couple of missing variables to that equation. So you earn $1,000 of sales revenue, but you don't have that end deposit into your checking account of $1,000. So I'm going to show you what it looks like from a journal entry perspective. So right off the bat, sometimes I like to work backwards. Sometimes I work, in the middle, but I think it's easiest if we look at the credits first, so revenue. So typically, here's what happens typically whenever you make a sale. Any other company, if you're not getting factored. So if you're not using factoring, it'll just look like this. Very straightforward. You don't even need to do a journal entry because it's just one debit, one credit. So debit to your checking account and a credit to your sales. So revenue goes up, checking account goes up, super simple. But it's not that simple because in reality, you actually only got, just for example, $880. So your rate confirmation says $1,000, but you only got $880 from your factoring company. So your debits always need to equal your credit. So this is where it gets a little confusing and it doesn't match up. So we need to add a couple things. We need to account for a couple other variables. So first of all, everyone knows the factoring fee. And this is typically 2 to 3%. For this example, we will say it's 3%. So $30. So we're going to make this a lot more than $880. We'll make it $960, let's just say. So 30 of that difference is getting paid directly to the factoring company. And you can have it say whatever you want. for your revenue, batch number 123, line it up with your factoring company, whatever their numbering system is. Factoring fee, 3%. Checking account, batch number. This is just for your personal records, the description here. And now we're still off by $10. So another thing I see is ACH transfer and invoice fee. So my factoring company, they charge me $5 every time I do an ACH transfer and 75 cents for every invoice that they create on my behalf. So just to keep it simple, we'll just say $10 here, but typically I'll pay in like $5.75 for every factoring transaction I have. And you can name this probably one of two things. You can include it with your factoring fees. One of three things. You can include with your factoring fees. You can name it a whole different expense, or you can name it bank charges and fees. It does not matter. It's still a business expense. It doesn't matter what you name it, how you identify it. Whatever name is on here is how it'll show up in your profit and loss. So we have that. So this is what it looks like. This is how you will account for factoring fees. And then so what happens, you create this journal entry, and then whenever this $960 shows up into your checking account, all you have to do is just hit match. If you're using QuickBooks, just hit match. It'll match that bank deposit with this journal entry. So all the details are here. On your profit and loss, it'll show up as $1,000 of revenue. You'll have $40 worth of expenses, and then you'll have $960 here deposited into your checking account. And I want to show you one other thing, fuel cards. So I use a fuel card directly from my factoring company, and they can deposit money straight into your fuel card. But if it's not coming in your checking account, you might miss that revenue. So you might be thinking, if I'm receiving this revenue, but then I just use it to buy fuel, it just kind of cancels itself out. So I make $100, but then I go to the gas station, spend $100. So really on your profit and loss, it's going to show zero, but you still want to have an accurate P&L. You still want to accurately represent your true revenue, and you want to see where your expenses are. So I would still recommend, even if you're making the money and just spending it right away on your fuel card, you still want to account for it. So what you're going to need to do, because you're not going to be able to connect your fuel card to your QuickBooks, so you're just going to need to create a separate bank account, quote unquote, air quotes here, bank account. So I have EFS. So I'll show you how to create a new checking account. And it's not really a checking account, but for accounting purposes, it's a bank, right? It's a bank checking account. It's holding money. You treat it like a debit card. So you just go here, bank checking, name it whatever you want. I named mine EFS card. So if you're not transferring money from your factoring company directly to your actual checking account, you're going to want to do a journal entry, but do a debit to your EFS card or your fuel card. That way you can still show the proper revenue and then the proper deposit of cash or money into your fuel card. And then the same thing, I'll X out of this. So that's for your fuel card, and the exact same thing. You still want to account for all the fuel you're spending. So you can go up here into expense, and you can basically virtually show that you're spending money on fuel through your EFS card. So because you created it as a bank or a checking account, so now you can draw money out of it. And there are a few extra steps because you're not able to connect your fuel cards or your factoring company directly into QuickBooks, but you should still be accurately representing all of that information. So I hope that kind of made sense. It's very specific to trucking. But yeah, if you have a factoring company, you want to make sure you're capturing those expenses. Don't just record the leftover money after expenses that you're receiving. Capture your true revenue and then factor in your expenses, your factoring fees. And then also for your fuel cards, if you're putting money on your fuel cards, just create a separate bank in your QuickBooks to represent your fuel cards. Hope that was helpful. If you all have any questions about trucking or bookkeeping, specifically for trucking, feel free to reach out. I understand the industry. I understand bookkeeping. So I'm more than happy to work with you. And I think I'll be able to help you specifically. And if you want me to make another video based on, whatever questions you might have, definitely reach out. I'd be happy to make a video kind of explaining a specific problem or issue that you might be having. So check out my website, harrisburgbookkeeping.com. Pretty active on Facebook. Harrisburg Bookkeeping is my Facebook business page. You can find my email address on my website and on my Facebook page. So send me an email, send me a message. Let me know if you're having any issues with your bookkeeping, and I will be happy to work with you. Appreciate you all watching my videos. Stay tuned for the next one.